Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Trading Nomadic Show. And I've got a few assets I'm excited to go over. We talked about last week, a couple that came from the chat. And we ended up doing really well on a few of these. Just give me 1 second. Let me pull this up, get those shared. The first one I've got on the screen here. Obviously, this one's a popular asset this week, not so popular last week. We came off the highs. We've been coming off the highs since about April 13th at about 64.8. And we've been taking a dive for a while now. Everybody has been panicking. Everybody's been concerned. When is it going to stop? Yada, yada. And in the meantime, I've kind of been looking at this idea that we were going to form some sort of harmonic coming off of this retrace back here from February. We got that impulse up, corrected down a little bit, went for it again, and got rejected at C. And I've been watching for a pattern completion zone, and it ended up painting. This is a bullish cipher. It's obviously a bullish harmonic, and this D point down here is where you want to look for a reaction. That would be the pattern completion zone. And we did get a reaction. We started falling off of it again, but with bullish harmonics, a very common thing you want to look for is after the initial reaction, you'll come back down and confirm. It's a confirmation low, is what I like to call it. You get the initial reaction, you come back down, and it just confirms one more time before traders, enter their long positions, that what was support is support once again. And immediately, once we got that second touch, you can see we went for quite the ride. I'm on the 4-hour chart here. We wicked down, touched it again, and just it immediately took off. And the next candle after that, it was just, we engulfed from about 48, 49, all the way up to where we're sitting now at about $55,000. Taking a look at the 4-hour MACD, we're starting to lose a little bit of positive momentum. We haven't formed any bearish divergence on the MACD. What you'd want to look for is, while we're still making higher highs on the price, we're making lower highs of positive momentum, which we haven't done yet, not on this island. The RSI is up into overbought territory. With Bitcoin, you get a little more flexibility than you'd normally get with traditional assets. While I'm going over, I've got a couple I wanted to go over quick, but if anyone has any tickers they want to see, any assets you want me to take a look at, just drop them in the comments. Just do me a favor, hit the like while you're at it, and I'll go over as many as I can in the hour that we've got. But yeah, Bitcoin's starting to cool off a little bit, but I mean, that's to be expected. We are up into this zone. You've got a double bottom over here at about 5,300. We are 53,000. We are above that now. We are sitting right on top of the 618 of this Fibonacci retracement, and that is going off your X to A leg of that harmonic. Traditionally, you'd want to run the retrace off the D to the A, but because of this harmonic structure, I run it from the X to the A to get my projection levels. And one of the targets I've talked about, it was a while ago. It hasn't exactly went straight there, but I do have confidence that our target eventually is going to be 60 or 71,800. We could do a lot of things in between. Arguably, we do have, this is also accumulating. We're making higher lows on the main structure here. And the 1618 is up in that area as well off this X to A leg, which would bring us to 73,000. I got you, Richard, GHIV. I'll put that one in the list here. But yeah, I mean, we've got some work to do to get there. We could very well come and, you know, move sideways a little bit on this. If we pull up the daily chart on Bitcoin, it looks a lot better than the 4-hour chart. You know, we do have, you know, if you look on these two negative histogram islands, they are coming down to the same level. At the same time, you know, we're starting to make some higher prices. You know, negative momentum is waning on the MACD. Your RSI is going up, straight up at the moment. So we've got a lot of room for more movement in this asset on the way up so far with the daily, and that's what I really stick to. Ethereum, that was one I was going to go over. I'll do that one now, and then I'm going to do GHIV after that. Ethereum is another hot topic in crypto. Ethereum's been a hot topic in crypto, but right now it's making all-time highs. You know, we'll go over the technical indicators. You know, we came down back about April 15th. That's when the market started coming down. You know, obviously with Bitcoin falling, most other assets were falling at the same time. It's, you know, it drags them all down with it. But as you can see, once we bottomed out, we've got a nice double bottom in here in Ethereum, and it's, you know, we've been moving up since, slowly making higher lows, coming up to this neckline here. I've got this neckline drawn out. Not only, you know, was it a resistance from the 22nd, but it is also the 100% measured move of the accumulation that took place, you know, throughout March, coming off the highs at the end of February. So that was a target. We have already made that one. But as you can see, we are attempting to break above it. You know, we got up to as high as about 2670. It looks 2680. And put in a double top on the 4-hour at least. At the same time, we are a little bit into the overbought territory on the RSI. So we could very well, if we don't recapture, you know, depends if you move this supply line down just a little bit, we're kind of sitting on top of it. You know, we might end up coming sideways a little bit while the oscillators on the 4-hour reset. On the daily, starting to make some higher highs on the RSI after we had some bearish divergence on the RSI coming off that double top. And as far as the daily is concerned, you know, we've still got some time to close above this level. And if we do, that will be the highest candle close on Ethereum of all time. Some of the targets I have for Ethereum, if we do manage to get above 2600 here, I'll be looking at the 1618 Fibonacci retrace off of that double top where we came and put a bottom in down at about 1950. The 1618, especially with crypto, is a very common retrace, and that's one I would expect this asset, you know, to go take a shot at next. Like I said, the 4-hour does look like it needs a little bit of time to cool off, but you know, so far these moving averages, if you see following this price action, I've got this orange one is a momentum moving average one I've customized myself. When the momentum's positive, when it's moving up, you're going to see these little dots turn orange, and they still are, and they're starting to separate a little bit, which indicates growing momentum, right? You know, when they're nice and tight together, like down here, that's when you're going to start to see that momentum pick up. And when they start separating a little bit, that means the momentum's picking up. And the same thing, this green one is MFI, It's money flow index. It basically tells you if there's more money coming in or if money's starting to come out. And both of those at this time are still pointed upward, and they are still underneath the price action, which is what you want to see with these type of moving averages of sorts. GHIV, if I can type this out properly. Well, I can tell you right away. I mean, I don't know anything about this stock. It sounds familiar. This might have been one I've been in before. I just want to throw out there, this is a low volume stock. I usually like to keep stocks I invest in above 1 million in volume per day, at least, but all the same. What we're going to do, and I'll show you, this is how I generally size up a chart here. I'm on the weekly at the moment. I don't know where the blue came from. I'm not a big blue guy here. We got this zone here on the weekly. Then usually I like to reference back to the daily. And it looks like we're right actually above. I mean, we are right. These are these ice lines here are back from February, beginning of February here, and we are on top of those, which is a good sign. I would like to see, if I was investing in this asset, I would like to see it stay above those levels. Because if it falls underneath there, who's to say it could very well go back and test some of these lower lows that you saw at the beginning of March and as recently as last week. So that's where I would start. I'd like to stay above that. We'll call that our ice line on this asset. And what I'm going to do is run a Fibonacci retracement from this double bottom here. We had 2 different points double bottoming here. We'll run that up to the top. Now I'm using this volume profile over here in purple, and generally when I'm trying to find my zones and my placement for trends, I like to look at the volume profile. And because this is such an illiquid stock, you don't get as much information as I'd like, but you can definitely tell that at some point here at 25, that was a resistance. We did break above it before, but you can see there's almost no volume up here. So that's why I use that as the top of my Fibonacci retracement. Looking at the MACD, same thing. We're losing some momentum here. The RSI is pretty high for where I'd like to enter a stock. But if you're looking at it, the context of these candles, we did get this Japanese reversal down here. We sprung. There's a nice run. This is April 20th to right now. We've got this asset has appreciated. If I had my tags on here, we're up about 22%. So this makes sense. You need a little bit of time to cool off, but what I like looking for when you have a big leg, a big impulse up like that, is you're springing above resistance, and before traders are going to want to take a long position to the upside, generally you're going to see that spring back tested. You want to confirm what was once resistance is now support. So if you have not entered a position in this asset, I'd personally wait for the oscillators to develop a little bit, wait to get that confirmation that this resistance is now support, because that's ultimately what you're going to want to see. Looking at this structure, almost got like an XABCD, whether it's a harmonic or not, a formal harmonic. It definitely looks like you've got the structuring for it, right? Probably look at it like, oh, maybe not. You know, if this was a formal harmonic or, you know, an XABCD in general, you know, this would be the point where that completes, and that's where you'd want to see the reaction. So I would wait on GHIV here and just wait for some confirmation that you have now found support above this old resistance, and that's where you'd want to take your long. Looking at this volume shelf on the right side here, I do like that, you know, we're back above this chunky area down here. You can see, again, you know, this zone where I've marked in red here was at some point was, you know, traders set it up as a support or a resistance, because the volume profile is definitely different than some of these areas higher above it. So if you can find support on that old resistance here, you know, I would consider this a great spot to enter a trade. You know, not speaking specifically about this stock, but if you got support here and you take a trade here, you're right at your support line, and you could set up a stop, you know, far enough underneath it. I would probably go, personally, you've got this big engulfing candle from, looks like just about a week ago. Just drop your stop underneath there, because if it falls back underneath here, I personally wouldn't want anything to do with it. You know, you just broke this nice this resistance. If you can find support and it falls back underneath there, I would probably not want to be in this trade specifically. But if I was looking for targets on the way up on this one, I'm looking left here. You know, you definitely got a lot of chop in this area. I would probably think 16 bucks is going to be your target from this zone here. If you look at the price action correlation from that zone, it's straight down. If you look at your price action over here in the beginning of March from the zone that we just came from, it's straight up to that zone. So I would think 16 bucks, 16.45 is probably going to be your first target on the way up. If you wanted to be a little bit sparing, you know, 1578, it's old resistance here, and it was support back here in February. So obviously traders at some point set that zone up as whether it's a bottom or, you know, an area they're taking profits. So that would be a target if it does manage to get above this zone, which is one of your choppiest zones in this asset's history. I would look up here to the 50% retrace at 1819, and you can see it was once support, it was once resistance. So historically, this is a zone to keep an eye on. And eventually the 618. And if you look at about 1966, that was your highest close over here. I mean, you could arguably move that down a little bit. You know, obviously you're going to want the oldest, the most historical data you can, because all these zones were originally set up by traders. The Fubo, I could take a look at that one too. Tesla as well. So yeah, those are the zones I would look at. But first and foremost, you're going to want to get above 1578 to 1645. That's definitely going to be a choppy zone, and one that I would personally take some profits off the table at that zone. What was next? Tesla. Don't mind some of this stuff. So Tesla is one that I've been talking about for a few weeks here. We brought this trade up here before, but obviously it's seen a little bit of turmoil after topping up at about 790. Back on the 13th. But we are still above the 50% retrace. And if you look at the price action correlation to that zone, we sprung above. It got rejected. It got rejected before, and then ended up, trying again. But we never got a retest once we went above that zone. I mean, you could argue this little wick down, but I don't think that's really what traders are looking for. Anyone who entered in down here, they want another sign that, hey, it's safe to take another long position on Tesla or to add to their position. And more than likely, that's what we're going to see happen on Tesla. Probably going to come back down, test that 687 zone one more time. And, just because we make it back down to that zone doesn't mean that's going to be an automatic, long position for me. I want to see some confirmation on the oscillators here. The MACD is still showing growing negative momentum, but if we end up making some lower prices and this negative momentum doesn't come much further down, you're going to have got lower prices and then negative momentum waning, going upward, prices coming down, negative momentum going up, which would imply impending price action continuation to the upside, because that is a bullish divergence indication, which means that the bears driving this price down have lost control, and the bulls want to come in and they want to start pushing this price up. And the RSI, if you look down here on Tesla on the 4-hour chart, the RSI is coming down into oversold territory. And the same thing, if this RSI double bottoms here from this point on the price, and if it double bottoms on the RSI, well, we're making a higher low on the price. That would be a form of bullish divergence as well. That would be class C bullish divergence, which is a continuation form of divergence that says, again, impending price action continuation to the upside. For Tesla, we've got this neckline in here. I would expect that would be this would be the 886 Fibonacci retracement at about $800, about 811. So that would be the first place I think we're going to go test after we find our support down here and possibly develop bullish divergence. And if you notice on this volume shelf, there's a lot less congestion up here in the volume profile. So if we get back up there and we start testing these levels, there is not a lot of volume going on up there, and it's going to be a lot smoother of a ride once we get out of this choppy zone, if it does in fact continue to the upside. Yeah, I could do a quick rundown of how I set up TradingView. Let me get a couple of these requests out of the way. Fubo, I think, is the last one we've got here. But as far as Tesla goes, that's going to be the first target, in my opinion, at about 811. And if we do get above that, I would be looking at the typical 1618 Fibonacci retracement off our lows back here at about $1,000, or as low as the 1272, which is 913. If you want to do a measured move of this zone that we're in, I would look at it like this, and Same thing, the measured move of this zone down here is confluent with about the 1618, which is about $1,000 on Tesla. And this is an asset. I did trim my position a little bit when we put in this double top over here, but I'm still long on Tesla, and I plan on adding, once we get a confirmation that we found a bottom down here. What was the next one? Fubo. Fubo is one I'm also in. This is a different chart, but this is an asset that we have talked about on the stream a couple times. So I've got this zone. This is, basically my critical ice line. It's just, it's a zone that you don't want to fall underneath it, because if you do, you could definitely be, if you look at, we had a lot of accumulation on Fubo going on back here. This was last year, between summer and December, and that's when it got this price markup. This is the composite operator here. He's acquiring his position as this price is coming down. It tries to go up a couple times and it hits a supply line, and this is a collective accumulation, of traders, of whoever's looking at this asset. And once that accumulation accelerates and you run out of supply to keep that price down, because the demand is so high for this asset, that's when you get the price markup. And that's what happened at the end of December with Fubo. And historically, it looks like it's an outrageous price, but historically, Fubo, we've been there before, right? This is an old area that if you had been looking at this asset, for a while now, this was resistance before, and it became resistance once again. But for Fubo, I do like this asset, mainly because of the fact that you had market participants paying so much for it not that long ago. We are down at an area that was, historic resistance and support, not once, but twice. And we're back above that. If nothing else, if you don't like the stock, if you don't like, anything to do with this chart, you could look at it as it's an area where you've got a value on this asset. It's marked down just about 100% from, where it was at the end of December. And you've got easy to manage reward to risk on Fubo. If you entered a trade here, you just drop your stop loss, underneath the last real area of support, which if you're looking at history, I would really look at that as your zone on this asset. Under 2147, I would start to get a little bit worried, because we just got done breaking that zone. April 22nd, we put in a double top, ended up engulfing above it, and now we're above it. But under that 1985, I wouldn't want anything to do with this asset. We literally just got above this area with force, right? You've got this engulfing candle. We broke above this with force. I wouldn't want to see it fall back underneath there. That would tell me that, the price movement's really weak and market participants do not have enough power to drive this asset up higher. But my first target on Fubo would, just looking at price action correlation from this point, actually, I would probably look at, you've got this wick high from December at about $32. And if you look over here, it was resistance. Yeah, resistance, support, resistance. That's going to be a zone that I would expect traders to take profit at. But it's also one that I do think we're going to retest. Last time we were in that zone, we came straight down from it. Last time we were at the zone that we're in, we went straight up to that zone. Historically, that's an important area, and that would be one just above the 382. If you wanted to be conservative, we've got this 3080 zone back here in December where we put in a double top, and that 3080 zone is right at the 382 retrace at about 3046 to be specific. That would be my first target. You know, if you want to even be a little more conservative, we've got this wick high resistance at about 25.24. That might be the first stop. If we get above that, I would look at 30, 31, and further than that, you know, this is going to be this area up here. If it makes it that high, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to call some price. But I would just work my way up this Fibonacci retracement and see how the price reacts. But again, MACD is cooling off a little bit on the 4-hour. Same with the RSI, but that makes sense. You know, we sprung. We're going to back test and try to push this asset up higher. Now, as far as my setup with TradingView, you know, my specific trading process, just how I've been going over in this stream so far. You know, I like finding an asset that is, you know, retraced down to a support level where you've got a value area with easy to define risk to reward. I do have a couple different indicators on here. I don't use much. I like looking at the volume. I like looking at the price action, but I've got these two moving averages. One is a momentum, or the green one is an MFI, which is a money flow index, which just shows you when money's coming in and when money's going out. If it's going up, that means money's coming in. If it's going down, that means money's coming out. And if you look at, you know, this one specifically, it's starting to curve back to the upside. And this orange one down here is just a momentum indicator that I've kind of developed myself and messed around with different settings to get something that I liked. I use the MACD, which is just this, you know, this is a momentum indicator. When it's, the histograms are to the upside and green, that's positive, and negative. And the RSI is the relative strength index. It tells you when an asset is oversold, or I'm sorry, overbought, when it's up in the red zone up here, and when it's oversold down here in the green. So you want the RSI low when you're entering a trade, and if you're selling, you know, if you're trying to find a spot to sell, you know, when this RSI is maxed out up here, you know, up above this red zone, you're starting to get a little bit overbought. I set up all my assets the same way. You know, I like to find support zones first and foremost. And when I'm looking for targets, I always look, you know, to the history of an asset where you've had support and resistance before. And that's where I start. I find, you know, where my support is, where my resistances are going to be. And I like to find an asset that has made a retracement off of its highs, because it's least risk, and that's what you want. You want an asset at support that has been marked down at support, showing variables that tell you that this price markdown is about to reverse. And unless you had anything more specific about how I set it up, that's it. That's the basics of it. I have went over it before, but I keep it relatively simple. Boeing's definitely one. I'm not sure if you're the one who brought that up last week, but Boeing's one we talked about last week, I believe. So I'll start out, you know, the starting early 2021, you know, we fell off these highs from December at about 242, formed this nice rounding bottom accumulation. You know, this is where smart money is acquiring their position. And at this point, you know, at the end of January, that price started moving back upwards. So accumulation's taking place. Now you've got accumulation acceleration, which you're making higher lows, and then you've got this price markup the beginning of March all the way up to about 278, and then we form a harmonic off of this retrace, which this is a momentum shifting structure. These usually form after you've had, you know, a price markdown. Well, ideally, that's when you want to find them. You know, this price markdown and the momentum switching from sellers control to buyers control forms this XABCD pattern. And April 21st is where the pattern completed. At the same time this pattern completed, you had, from this point here to your pattern completion zone, you've got the price still marking down, but while that price is marking down, you are making higher, or the negative momentum on this asset is waning. Even though you made lower prices, you're not making lower levels of negative momentum, which would indicate this zone right here at the pattern completion is when the sellers lost control, and now you're starting to mark up a little bit. So for this harmonic, your first targets are going to be your C and your A, which is right about at the 50% retrace off of this correction here. You know, we came down here, double bottomed X and D, and your retracement, you know, a 50% retrace is confluent with just about with your C and A points. And if you look at the price action correlation from your C to your D, it's straight down from that point. So you would think if we're going to start moving to the upside, that's going to be an area that we're going to retest first. And that is between about 248, which is the 382, and 254, which is the 50%. And if you look at the price action correlation between in that zone at 252, you've got support, resistance. You know, it's obviously an area that traders have set it up as either, you know, a supply line or a demand line. So I would, you know, look to that zone to take profits if you're not in this trade already. Ideally, this isn't an ideal entry zone. You very well could be, my levels are a little bit messed up here. You very well might be on top of that support. This was support back here in March. You're on top of it now, but at the same time, your MACD is showing waning positive momentum. It's losing positive momentum. Your RSI is not bad right now, but it's starting to get, you know, up to the overbought territory. But if you look at the daily chart here, the daily actually looks pretty good. You know, your negative momentum is starting to wane on the daily. Your RSI is still low and it's pointed up, which means you've got some room to run. The 4 hour would just imply that, you know, maybe that won't happen immediately, because it does need a little bit of time to reset. You have shown some bearish divergence on the MACD, but as long as it stays above this zone, you know, if I was taking a trade here, you know, whether you want to or not, your stop's going to have to be below about 230, because this could come back down if it really loses momentum. It could come back down and back test this, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Just looking at, you know, you've got this indecision candle, indecision, and then it's got this nice piercing line reversal on the 4-hour chart here. And with the daily chart looking the way it does, I think, you know, whether it cools off a little bit short term, I think we're going to end up testing that 250 zone again. And then if I was looking higher than that, I would be looking up here to the 618, which is confluent with your A and a little bit above your C. That would be an area I would look at above. I'm sorry. Yeah. First, I'd look to 250, 260, and just see, you want some confirmation from the oscillators to say you're going to continue to go higher. So if you're taking along, I would wait to make sure that this is now support and then enter. And if I was entering here, I would probably shoot for, you know, between 260 and 265 as a take profit target on BA Boeing. And that is one I'm also entered in. I do have a long position with Boeing. UPST is the next ticker I see here. Do you use the money flow indicator? As far as using the money flow indicator, I mainly only use that as a confirmation indicator. You know, if I see an asset that is in a good spot that I might want to take a long position out on, that's when I'll use moving averages or the money flow and stuff like that. You know, just kind of a confirmation. I like to stick to, you know, candlesticks. I like to stick, you know, trends and support and resistance, you know, for entries. But that type of stuff, like right here on Upstart Holdings, you know, this looks nice. You know, you've got the momentum starting to pick up on Upstart. Your money flow is about to be crossed, you know, and look at the last time the momentum crossed above the money flow. You know, that's the type of stuff that you might want to look for, like a golden cross almost, just with different indicators, more or less. Just a confirmation. You know, there are traders that use moving averages religiously as, you know, their entry and exit, which is fine. You know, depending on your trading style, that's definitely something you could do. And it's pretty accurate. You know, if as long as you're using longer time frame charts, you know, it gives you a little bit of room. For Upstart here, this would be my zone, my ice line for Upstart. Old resistance, sprung above it. You back tested it once, came back down, you found a bottom and engulfed off of that 92.82 zone, or off that line. And then you broke back above the 105 resistance. So that 92 was resistance. We found support there. We broke back above the 105. And more than likely, looking at the MACD on Upstart on the 4-hour chart, the MACD is starting to wear out a little bit. You know, that positive momentum's fading. Your RSI is overbought. So maybe after this double top here on Upstart, you're going to come back down, right down to, you know, the money flow and the momentum lines, and you're going to retest the spring and make sure that that 105 zone is now support. You know, that's typically what you want to see. You want to see break resistance, come back down, test resistance as support, and then traders are going to be like, you know what, that's a safe place to take a long position because we know it's support and we know underneath it, we don't want to, you know, you'd want to be out because we just tested this as support. So if it breaks, if we lose support there or here, you know, obviously that's a bad sign. And you're at, you know, if it comes back down and tests that 105 area, you know, it's a nice area to define risk to reward. On Upstart, I would run my Fibonacci retracement from the low and put it to the resistance here. You had that resistance at 165. So if I was going to set up a trade on Upstart, I've got my ice line on the bottom, and then I've got my resistance here. That's how I set up all my trades. You know, this is stuff I don't YOLO. I don't. When I enter trade, I know when I'm getting out, and I know when I'm taking profit. So if I was looking at profit-taking levels on Upstart, I'm looking at these candles here, and you really had a hard time closing above 149. You got rejected twice. So this might be your real, the real top of your zone, you know, because you got above it before and you hit that 165, but there's no hang time at all above 149. So I would think, you know, if you come back down and retest 105, first I would look at, you know, this resistance we had here, resistance, support, resistance. I would look, you know, between 131 and 126, maybe take a little bit of profit there. And then the top of your zone, 149. And then if it breaks above these zones, you know, you're probably going to face some resistance again up here at 165 to 170. That's how I would look at it. But I would really want to see it come back down and confirm support here at 105. You'll get a better price because we're entering right now. You're right in the middle. It could go either way. And, you know, you want to protect your capital as much as possible. You don't want to enter in the middle of a zone because you're flipping a coin. It's gambling. As far as can anybody connect to the Polka swap bridge, I'm not sure. I'm assuming you're talking about Polkadot. I'm invested in DOT. I don't know much about the protocol. It's just, you know, it's an asset that I trade. And yes, please, if you guys could hit that like button, that'd be great. These guys don't kick me out of here. The more you show love, the better it is for me, and maybe it lets more people see what we're doing here, and you know, the more the merrier. You know, it's more eyes on the charts. NEE, Steve's job. I'll take a look at that one. NextEra Energy, and Mara. I'll take a look at that one too. Mara is one that I have been covering on this stream for a while. That's one I always play, and with Bitcoin moving, it's usually a good one. All right, so if I'm looking at NEE, switch over to the daily chart here. You know, we've got this resistance back here from the fall, it looks like. So if I'm going to make my ice line on NEE, I would say that's going to be, I don't want to fall underneath that. That's my danger zone, right? Because if you look at the bottom, that was resistance before we sprung above it. That was resistance back here, resistance, resistance. If we just sprung above it with all this force and we can't hold it, that's a bad sign. Let me switch back to the 4-hour chart here. And it looks like business as usual for a going out on a whim here, but yeah, it looks like maybe a bat. So this is a bearish harmonic. A bullish harmonic looks, not to digress, but a bullish harmonic usually looks like an M, and then you go. With a bearish harmonic, it usually looks like a W. Now, don't be fooled, because bearish harmonics usually end up leading to positive price action after they complete and after they retrace, which, you know, you could look at this C to D leg, just like we were talking about. Your C to D sprung, you broke resistance. Now you want to come back down. Traders want to know, hey, we broke that resistance. Is it support now? That's generally what happens. You break the resistance, it's now support. And that's where we're at on the 4-hour chart with NEE. This bearish harmonic completed, which C would have been an amazing entry. But if you're entering here, you're in a good zone for it, because of the fact that you're coming down. You know, you've got a nice sale on this asset. You look at that RSI, your RSI is oversold, and arguably you've got some bullish divergence on the RSI. With this price action still coming down, you've got negative momentum starting to move up, and that's bullish divergence as well. So that's telling me that the sellers are losing control and the buyers are gaining control, and you're at a critical ice line. So if you're going to set up a position here, it'd be pretty simple. You know, I want nothing to do with it underneath that ice line. You're only about, you know, 1%, 1.5% down. I wouldn't jump on it just yet, though. You know, you want the confirmation, because it very well could just keep going. And your next low would be at the top of, you know, this B point, but you got a little bit of room. It might come back down. It might test this lower line, but I really think that 77 zone is going to be the reversal. Last time we were at that zone, you know, you kind of back tested it and had this big old engulfing candle off it. So I would assume right here, you're going to want to see that price move to the upside. You know, you've got reaction after hitting that zone again. If I was going to set up targets on this asset, I would probably look off this bounce. I would probably look to about $80, which would bring you back up to the D point. And further than $80, I would look to the 786. I would just work my way up the Fibonacci retracement level, but to be more specific, I would look at it like this. To get a measured move, of this zone down here would bring you right back up to your resistance from January 26th, which would be about 85. So I'd look at 80, I'd look at 85. And if you start breaking above this zone, you know, I'd probably look up to the 1272 at 93. You know, it's a little bit early to call targets that far ahead, but see what happens here. This would be an area that this asset, it would make sense if it reversed. Not a lot of volume up here. You know, you got that you got that confirmation now. This is where longs would want to enter in that asset. Money flow indicator. Is BTC going to break resistance? Well, it depends on what you're looking at for resistance. We covered that one a little bit earlier. You know, I do think right now you're probably going to get, you know, the resistance I'm looking at right now is right about where we're at. I wouldn't be surprised if it cools off a little bit down. You know, that's what your 4-hour indicators are telling you, that it would make sense if it cooled off a little bit. I wouldn't consider that bearish at all. It's just that's what assets do. They make big moves up like this, and then they come back down, find their support. You know, you sprung, probably going to come back down. Test is, you know, your resistance as support, and that'll give confidence to new traders trying to take a long on this asset to drive it up a little bit higher, you know, because they know, hey, we just found support after this nice run up. If we break that support, well, you know, maybe my trade, they've got a nice place to identify their risk to reward. So yeah, I'm bullish as hell for Bitcoin, man. You know, long term, not just talking charts. Normally that's the only way I invest is, you know, through charts. But Bitcoin, for a lot of reasons, man, I'm very bullish on it in general. I like the opportunity it's giving a lot of people, and the circumstances surrounding its importance. Long term, yeah, I expect Bitcoin to break this resistance like it was nothing. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some dramatically higher prices real soon, because Bitcoin, it's limited supply, more demand than it's ever had in its entire history, and the people that are buying it, they're not buying it to trade. You know, they don't care 5, 10, 15, 20. They're not looking at a Bitcoin short term. They're buying it and they're taking it off exchanges. They're buying it and they're putting it away. They're not, it's as soon as the supply shock that Bitcoin's going through right now finally catches up to this price, you're going to see this price take off. This is my opinion. I'm not trying to give trading advice, but long term, you're gonna really see some amazing stuff happen, I believe, before this year's out with Bitcoin. You know, everyone was real surprised when, you know, we've made it this far, and I don't think that story's over, and I don't think it's going to be for a long time, especially with inflation, especially with the freedom that comes with Bitcoin, and, you know, the whole idea of a digital currency. It's in high demand, and there's not a lot of it. Never going to be more than they've already decided there's going to be. Am I bullish or bearish on Doge? Long term, I'm not going to say I had the same sentiment with Doge, and the only reason why I do like it is because of the chart and because of Elon Musk. I have a whole bunch of stuff I could talk about concerning that, but if we look at the chart, you've got this big old spring up, you know, April 16th. This is an asset I've been talking about since right around Christmas time. And now you've got the consolidation, and in this spring, you've formed a bullish harmonic. This is a Gartley. This is the godfather of harmonics. The Gartley has price targets of the C and the A, which brings you up to about 40 cents. And the 1618, this is the price target. this is where it's going if this plays out. And right now, and it's memes, call it a meme coin, call it a joke. It is, but the chart is telling me that if you analyze the waves, you got your spring, you came back up, there's more consolidation, and there were so many buyers at point D that you wicked up immediately, engulfed, and you've been kind of consolidating sideways a little bit here. If you're looking at the 4 hour, there's nothing screaming at me that says right now this price is going to go up, but your RSI is moving up, making higher lows, which means it's gaining strength. Then you still got positive momentum. It's slowing down. Your MACD's waning a little bit, but not much. It's kind of hovering, kind of like in indecision territory. But if you look at these candles, you're making higher lows. You're slowly drifting. And you've got this big engulfing candle, piercing line reversal off 25 cents. That would be your bottom. And I think it's just a matter of time before this asset starts catching bids. With the whole rest of the market moving, I do think that's probably slowing it down a little bit because everyone's got their attention other places. But you take a look at this momentum moving average I've got starting to curl up. It lit up orange, which means it's gaining positive momentum to the upside. Your money flow indicator is still headed upwards. And if you look on the daily, this is probably what traders are waiting for before they, take another position or add to their, whatever the case. You've still got negative momentum building on the daily. Now, if I was theoretically or hypothetically taking long on this asset, I want to see this daily momentum or negative momentum start waning. I want it to tell me that, hey, all these sellers are running out of ammo. Your RSI on the daily still looks good. You're kind of going sideways, but I think ultimately that's what's going on. That's why we're kind of stalled out here. A lot of money going into other assets right now in the cryptocurrency market, Bitcoin included. All the different altcoins getting a lot of attention, making a lot of movement. And you probably had a lot of people lose money on Doge that, whether they were trying to scalp, take quick trades on it and didn't, they got stopped out and probably sour. So, some of the hype, everyone thought 420 Doge Day, we're going to the moon. I think it lost a little bit of its hype, but the chart tells me that it's still going up. And it's probably, it's probably going to make some slowly higher lows. And once people are like, wait a minute, that party might not be over, I think that's when you're going to start seeing a dramatic price markup once again. And if you look at it, you could do something like this, right? You might just be making this nice rounding bottom accumulation, and then you get accumulation, acceleration. The demand outweighs the supply, and then you get your price markup. And that's where I would look at 60 cents, 50 cents, 40 cents. Those are three targets right there. If it breaks above 28.9, which is the 618, it's kind of teetering in between 25 and 29 cents right now. Once it gets above there, it's going to be quick. And I would definitely set my price targets ahead of time. ADP. Safe Moon coin, that's one I won't give you any recommendations on. I think it's a scam. People are going to lose money. There's probably people who are going to make money, but not everyone's lucky. And if you do make money on a coin like that, that's clearly, they got marketing campaigns trying to pump it up. It's almost worse for you, because if you make money on a coin like that, you're going to think you can do it again. And if you win this time, you might not win the next time. And it's really bad for the psychology of a trader. That if you're a gambler, I think that's okay. Just make sure you know what you're risking, make sure you know what you're going to lose, and look at it that way. As far as charting it out, I couldn't help you really much there. For ADP, this is one, you've got accumulation taking place, you've got acceleration. It hasn't really made any aggressive marks up, but that's how I would look at this one. This money flow indicator is still looking, he's still heading up. The thing you want to look out for with the money flow indicator is if this price starts coming back down to it and falls underneath it for this specific MFI, that would be an indication that you might want to get out of a trade. If I was looking at the money flow indicator as a long-term indicator for fairly straightforward buy and sell signals, I would use it with something, another a moving average of sorts too. I like how specifically these two moving averages work together, because you can see this is my momentum moving average. As soon as that price crosses, it turns off the orange dots on the momentum indicator. And as soon as that price crosses, that's usually when you get a downtrend. And then I like to look, hypothetically, you could look and wait for that price to meet back up with the MFI, right? The momentum indicator says momentum's, leaving this asset, you get out. That would be X marks your spot to sell. And then wait for that price to come back down to where the money's at. The MFI indicator, when used like this, tells you, it's basically with how much money is coming into this asset, that's where the price should be. So you get like that medial magnetism. You get out when the momentum starts fading. And then if you look down here, the price action's back down with the money flow. And then if you look to the momentum, as soon as that price action was down with the money flow and the momentum started turning orange again and started curving upward, that would be a good place, hypothetically, where you could take a long if that was your trading strategy. And if you look at that point, this is where you would enter. That was at 164. And since then, this asset has moved up 20% from that point, and now it looks like the momentum on this asset is getting, at least for that indicator, it's turned off. So that means this might be an area where that asset would reverse if I was just only going by that indicator for like a long-term type of investment, an investment strategy, right? But if I look at ADP right now, generally after a rounding bottom accumulation or a cup and handle type formation, once you get to the top, it usually comes down a little bit, whether this is, this little area here and March 30th was it, or it comes back down and double retest that. That's generally what you could expect. But if we're looking at the MACD on ADP, you've got, it's not divergence, but it's convergence. Your price is moving up and your negative momentum is also starting to move to the upside, which basically is a continuation indicator, which says potentially this point right about where we're at still has some room to go up. RSI's got a little bit of room too as well on the 4 hour. So whether it comes back down, down to 188 where this money flow indicator is and retests what was once resistance as support, we sprung above it and we haven't retested it. So if I was entering a position on ADP, that's where I would look for an entry, because up here you're kind of in no man's land. But if I was going to run Fibonacci retracement off of this accumulation zone, we're right about at the 1618 at 193. Maybe it cools off and moves sideways a little bit here instead of coming all the way down to 190. That's about it for that one. The daily is not giving you a hell of an argument. We are a little bit overbought on the daily. Some negative momentum came in on the daily just a little bit, and it was pathetic. The bulls came in, it was their turn to drive this asset up, and they had almost nothing. So the only thing that's selling me on the daily is you got this nice little hammer that engulfed yesterday's indecision candle. Well, not in you could call that an indecision candle. But the daily is not over yet. The 4 hour, same thing. You do have this piercing line reversal at about 194. So maybe it does give another attempt at some higher prices here. If I was looking for targets above where we're at on this one, I would probably look 197. It's a tough one because it looks like it's price discovery for this asset, right? ADP. Yeah, I mean, that's all-time highs. So, 205 would probably be an eventual target. If this keeps on moving up, I would say 205, 198. But you very well, like I said, could come back down and test 190 or 193 again before attempting some higher prices. I think we're running out of time here. This is probably why
that is
handsome guys showing up on the
case,
screen here.
But it's been a good show. Lots of great information. Thank you.
If I missed anybody's request, you can follow me on Twitter at Trade Nomadic. If you guys drop some tickers in there or message me on Twitter, I'd be more than happy to make up a few charts for you guys, and we cover them on the show too as well.
All right, there we go, guys. Make sure and give him a follow at Trade Nomadic. Thank you so much for running this show.
Of course.
That's been a good one, and we will catch you next time.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.